So I've just said, if it's possible to obtain an external confirmation, then always include it as one procedure to get 1 mark for it. Okay, just so that you understand the process, because for the level 1s, sometimes they actually like to test, do you know the theory of how you go about sending the external confirmation? But then the required needs to be specific about audit the external confirmation process. If it's not specific about that, then just go and put your 1 mark saying obtain an external confirmation for that balance or transaction. Okay, but if it is the whole process, then you need to know and note that the auditor must control the process. The auditor must send the external confirmation directly and then request that it is returned directly to the auditor, not to the company or to management. They need to follow up if there's no response and potentially see if there's any other ways to gather the evidence if we aren't getting a response. Also consider, if you're not getting a response, the fact that potentially that external party doesn't actually exist. Okay, for both levels, you must be aware, what if management refuse to give us permission to send? This could be considered a limitation of scope. If there's no other way we can get the evidence, and remember, right at the beginning of the audit, we said if we are aware there's a limitation of scope, we shouldn't accept the engagement. So now we've accepted the engagement, we find out at this point, either we need to decide maybe we want to withdraw, or we know it's going to affect our audit opinion if we can't get the evidence elsewhere. But there's a chance we can, in which case it's all right that we can't get that evidence. Right, so what assertions can I get evidence for when I do external confirmations? This is important, guys, because we looked at how we can do standard procedures for each of our different assertions. Now I'm saying, for the completeness of a transaction or an account balance, you can say get an external confirmation. For the occurrence of a transaction or the existence of an account balance, you can get an external confirmation. For the accuracy of a transaction or the valuation of an account balance, we could get an external confirmation. So just to understand, the most common is going to be for the existence and the occurrence of a transaction, because what you're doing is you can see that it's been recorded in the accounting records, and now you're going to confirm with that party whether it does actually exist or it did actually occur. So it's the most common. But for accuracy, you could actually ask them for confirmation of the rand amount, which you can do the same then for valuation. But remember, for valuation it's a little bit tricky, because for your assets there's still those negatives, assets, depreciation, amortization, all of those. So by me asking them to confirm the rand amount, I might not get the actual rand amount that's sitting in the financials, because they would only be confirming that initial amount. And then for the completeness, if you can see that something is for an account balance, let's say an account balance is not there in the current year, but it was in the prior year, then you can go and request them to confirm that there is 0 for the current year. And the same for a transaction. Alright, so your 1 mark, obtain an external confirmation for that balance or that transaction. So guys, let's quickly go have a look at what ISA 505 says. So here's your contents page and dealing with external confirmation procedures. So that's where you're going to find the actual structure to follow when sending the external confirmation. And then what actually happens if they refuse? Okay, let's go to the requirements. So the actual procedures, first you need to determine the information that is going to be confirmed, select the confirming party, design the confirmation request, and then sending the request. Okay, I've just highlighted here between A3 and A6. Because I said A4 said to me, here's some factors to consider when you're designing the confirmation. What assertion are you trying to get evidence over? Do you have any prior experience on the audit or similar engagements? Okay, have management given us authorization to be able to do this? Then, what happens if management refuse? First, find out what the reason is and evaluate the implications. And that's because it says that could be a common reason, a legal dispute or ongoing negotiation, and they don't want us to be getting involved with that third party. However, just note that if they refuse, it could also be an indication of fraud. Third party doesn't actually exist. Okay, then I've got you could perform alternate procedures. And I've highlighted A10, but they don't really help us because A10 says please go and look at A18 to A19. So let's have a look at this, guys. Alternative procedures to external confirmations. If it is accounts receivable, we can do subsequent receipts. Okay, and all it says is go and look at receipts received post year end. Go and trace it to the documents to see when the risks and rewards transferred for that receipt, and then see if that receipt relates to a balance at year end, because then it proves the existence of that balance at year end, at least for the portion of the receipt. And then we've also got subsequent payments for accounts payable. And this was more for the completeness assertion. So the above one was for existence. And that was where the payments made after year end went back to find what that payment related to. Was it for a transaction after year end or was it for before year end? Because if it was for before year end, then I need to go and see that they raised the payable or the liability so that they have not understated their liabilities or trade payables. Okay, if they don't confirm, then this could give us doubts about the reliability, and we will need to do further audit work to get the evidence that we need. It could be an indication of fraud. So this is if, first of all, we send it, but they don't actually get back to us, and then also the same situation, if we ask management to send and they say no, then it's the same risks that we're facing. So non-responses, the alternative procedures we've just looked at for trade payables and trade receivables. Okay, and then finally, if we needed that evidence and we can't get evidence elsewhere, it's going to have to affect our audit opinion.